technical issues on our end that we're working out, and but we're still in the process of doing that, but we do want to get started. We'll just take a quick roll call. Rod Hall, Carol Lear,
Yes.
Amanda Bollinger,
Here.
and Vice Chair Hart.
Molly Hart, yes.
Okay, yeah, I should have used titles. So thank you for everyone for being here on time. Vanessa, do we have any public comment today? Okay, then let's get started with agenda item 2.2. This is Spectrum Academy. It is a waiver request renewal. And it's my understanding we have Mandy, is it Furiman? Furiman online with us. She is the Assistant Director of Spectrum Academy. Ms. Furiman, are you there?
Yep, I am here.
Perfect. Then with that, we're going to ask Deputy Superintendent Newey to queue us up for this particular agenda item. Oh, I'm sorry, that would be AAG Beal. And AAG Beal, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank you. And do you mind queuing up the committee for this agenda item?
No problem.
Thank you.
So this waiver request is a renewal made under R277-121 to waive Rule R2774-419-4, which is the 180 days requirement. Spectrum Academy has had this waiver since 2022 to operate on a 4-day school week. They utilize their Fridays for some optional services and professional development for staff. And they would be offering 993.5 total instructional hours. They did do a parent and staff survey, which are included in your backup, and they also did receive approval from the state charter school board as required in our rule. So they're compliant with supplying all of the data and approvals that they need. So I think if you have any questions, Chair, like you said, the assistant director is there to answer those.
Thank you. Assistant Director, is it Furiman?
Furman.
Furman.
You can just say Furman.
Furman,
Yeah.
thank you. Would you like to do a short overview of the packet that you submitted to the committee?
Yeah, sure. How brief do you want me to be, or how in depth would you like me to be, I guess is my question.
I would say if you want to take 3 to 5 minutes and just talk about the highlights, and then the committee may have questions for you.
Okay. So as you know, well, may or may not know, I shouldn't assume, Spectrum Academy serves a quite large population of students that have disabilities, about 85% of our population. And so we have been utilizing the waiver in order to allow our staff to plan for specialized instruction and to work on compliance with IEPs and those types of things. So our teachers and staff have really appreciated that aspect in allowing them to really individualize the services for our students. And then on the flip side, parents have also given us some really strong feedback with that the flex day on Friday to either come in and receive some individualized support, but also to utilize it for therapy and outside appointments that they often have, so they're not pulling their students out of school. We kind of have a situation where students can come in and get individualized support on those Fridays, or they can also work on things from home that teachers have assigned. And so that's how we've been utilizing it. The feedback from both staff and parents is pretty strong, with most families really appreciating that time to focus on things at home, as well as attend therapy appointments that a lot of our students have, and then staff utilizing that for that compliance and planning of specialized instruction. So probably shorter than 3 minutes, but if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, we actually do have some questions.
Yeah.
I just want to start out. This is Chair Carey, and when I was reviewing the data that you provided, we saw that you did the beginning of year versus middle of year review in your submission, and we assume that's because at the time the year wasn't completed. But do you have
Yes.
any data that would show the beginning of year versus end of year? Even if it's not for
We're just, yeah, we're just collecting that now, like testing just occurred for, for that. So we don't have this year's data on that.
And when do you think that would be ready? Well, let me strike that. Do you have any reason that you couldn't supply that to our committee when it's complete?
No reason that we couldn't supply it once it's complete.
And then I just have one other question before I turn it over to the committee, and that would be, a lot of times, I think when people apply for the first waiver or a renewal, they want to show all the positive metrics, which makes sense. But I'd like to ask you, where do you see underperformance occurring in light of the waiver? Like something maybe that you didn't expect, or you're seeing a trend develop where, yeah, we've got to keep our eye on this. Are there any areas like that related to the waiver?
Right. So a few things. One thing you should know is our previous executive director, as well as our business director, both retired this year. So both me and our other assistant director and Liz Banner, our new executive director, are new this year. So obviously this waiver was applied for previous to us being in our positions. We have kind of a unique situation in the sense that we have campuses in Pleasant Grove that utilize the waiver a little bit different than our campuses in North Salt Lake. Pleasant Grove, we don't have quite as many Fridays out, that 4-day week as they do in North Salt Lake. So there are a few areas that we are watching very closely, just because we want to make sure, new in our position, again, with the strong parent and staff support, really wanting to keep it, and all the changes we went through this year, there are quite a few areas that we want to make sure we're keeping an eye on. And with the uniqueness of being able to compare, again, how things are going in Pleasant Grove with how things are going in North Salt Lake, there's a couple of areas where we do want to watch very closely. And if at any time it's showing any indication that it's not best to stick with the 4-day, we would want, of course, to make that switch over to, a 5-day, back to the 5-day, and not utilize the 4-day waiver anymore. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does, and thank you for the care and oversight that you're exercising. Vice Chair Bollinger?
Thank you, Chair. Director Furman, just a question just for our understanding and clarity on your Friday schedules. So it said in your application that you have students going 152 days. What is the total number of days that are teachers working, and what do their Friday schedules look like?
So the Friday schedules look like for teachers, I'm trying to pull up that data. They're obviously working together on IEP development, getting IEPs completed, also working as teams with planning and utilizing that time to plan for the specialized instruction that they deliver, that the minutes that are listed on the IEPs, making sure. And then also quite a bit of professional development happens with our OT and speech language providers, our PTs, our social workers on Fridays, delivering some professional development with our teachers. And then as far as the number of school days that are expected for the staff, And I see now Liz and Joe on there. So if they can hear me and they have that data up, I am looking for that number. The number of school days that they spend.
Yes, I hope it's okay. This is Joe Dixon, the assistant director, along with Mandy. So our staff does 187 work days in North Salt Lake.
If I may follow up. Thank you. Thank you for that information. And I will say that as a former special educator myself, I could appreciate the extra time for planning IEPs and professional development and just planning specially designed instruction and how beneficial that would be for all special educators. So thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah, no problem.
Board Member Lear?
I had a few questions also. First of all, let me start by saying I very appreciate the students that you serve. It's a real benefit to this community that you've served these students for so long. And that's again, that's an important part of this discussion. I had as I was reading your information, there was one statement in there, and I couldn't even point you to the page, but it says that you're seeking this waiver and that's a renewal because of because you can't find the time to do the work you need to do. And I'm paraphrasing. But then I found that that seems a little counterintuitive if you're taking a day away from serving the students. And I realize you've increased the number of minutes per day, but it still concerns me, given that your student population, I'm not sure how well they do with a long day. And it just troubled me a little bit that you're saying we don't have enough time to serve these students. And I know that you mean that in the biggest way, the broadest way, but then you're also saying, but we need to get rid of a day. And that troubled me. So that was one point. And I don't know if I need a response to that. If you have one, hold that thought for a minute, and I'll ask another question that I also struggled with that is escaping me for this same moment. Why don't you respond to that, and if you have a response. You don't have to. Any one of you, whoever's most
Yeah,
informed.
I can speak to it unless Liz or Joe, you wanna go.
Go ahead, Mandy.
So it is a good question. And again, with the three of us being new in our position, we do feel like there's been a lot of change at the school over the last year with all three of us. And so being, with the switch of phasing out the previous executive director and the three of us coming into our positions. So it is a good question. And we are very closely looking at this data because we also have some of the concerns you've brought up, but in the spirit of not making too many changes all in one year, that is one reason why we felt like consistency for now while we watch these numbers and see and make sure that everything's trending in the direction we want it to trend, but keeping a close eye and then being ready to make a change after 1 year if we see anything that shows us we need to make that shift.
That's a helpful response. Thank you. My second question had to do with the students. Because you have such a high proportion of your students with IEPs, I'm wondering if you found it necessary to review all of these IEPs to see if some students need a 5-day-a-week program, if that might be the best thing for students and their consistency. Or did you consider that just increase, and this maybe predates you as directors, but did you consider that using the same number of minutes per day or hours per year would compensate for that extra day? What was your thinking about that? It seemed to me, and I'm not a special ed expert, but I know some things, and I know that IEPs should be individualized, and that one of the important factors is the number of service time, is the amount of service time. So just speak to how you're certain that the IEPs are consistent with this schedule.
Right, right. So, and then, yes, that is an important point. I think with our Fridays, the students do have the option to still come in and receive some support and services. So for those students where parents and the team feel it's best, the student can come in. It's just not a mandatory or required day for students. So Liz or Joe, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I know we still have students coming in for IEP minutes on those Fridays. And so it has been more of that team decision and an option for the students that need it, but then also an extra day of other activities for students who don't. And that was one thing we had back from parents, that they were able to do other activities with their children that they wouldn't have been able to do for those that didn't need the extra support. And the parents and families really enjoyed that flexibility. So we are seeing some extra supports for those students that do need that in their IEPs, and then also some flexibility for students who don't.
And that's great, but I feel like the IEP should drive the students' attendance more than the convenience of the families, and that's maybe not going to sit well with some people, but I'm just concerned that this group of students specifically might need greater consistency for more days, and maybe not quite such long days. But I do appreciate your comment of not making changes when you're all brand new to the leadership. So thanks. Let me think on that.
Thank you, Board Member Lear. Vice Chair Hart.
Yeah, I support this waiver. One, you've got more instructional hours than some districts do. Two, the people that choose your school are choosing your school, and they're choosing with eyes wide open. Three, you are the experts in dealing with and making accommodations for students with the IEPs that you have. 3 IEPs are done in minutes, not days. So that I'm sure that you're considering and taking into consideration. I support the fact that you are cognizant of the fact that those IEPs take considerable time and coordination with multiple people, which takes extra time. And you can either have the adults doing the work while students are there, which is lesser quality, or you can make arrangements so that your professionals have 100% of their attention on the students when the students are present. So I understand what you're trying to do. I support it wholeheartedly. I empathize with your change in leadership. That's a big ask, and I'm impressed with your preparation given the circumstances. I was on the board when the waiver was reviewed the last time, and I still support it wholeheartely, and can see that you are very attentive to the waiver and to the needs of your community and the desires of your parents and your staff members. So with that, I'd like to forward a motion. Obviously, we can continue to talk through it, but I'd like to make a motion, Chair, if that's okay. That the committee approves Spectrum Academy's request for a waiver renewal from Utah Administrative Code R277419-4 and forward to the board for approval.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the committee approve Spectrum Academy's request for a waiver renewal from Utah Administrative Code R277-419-4 and forward to the board for approval. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, so The aye votes were Vice Chair Bollinger, Vice Chair Hart, Chair Carey, Board Member Hall. The nay vote came from Board Member Lear. To everyone on the call from Spectrum Academy, thank you very much. I would just ask that when your year-end data report is ready, that you reach out and provide that to us.
We can for sure do that. Thank you.
Yes.
Chair, can I address them real quick? Is that okay?
The matter's closed, but if there's no objection from the
I just want to make
committee-
a comment.
Oh.
Want to make a comment.
Please.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the good work that you do. One of the young men that goes to your school just started going this year. I had him for 3 days at a youth conference. He's autistic and he lives at a scale from 1 to 10. He lives life on a 10. He's just a bundle of energy. But he started going to Spectrum this year, and it's just been a game changer for him. It's been a life change for him. So thank you for the good work that you guys do there over at Spectrum.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
that's
it.
wonderful to hear.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 2.3, this is the Iron County School District waiver request. This is not a renewal, it's new. And AAG Beal, do you want to cue us up for that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this request is coming out of Iron County School District. It's a request for a waiver under Rule R277-484. And it's actually the addendum to that rule, which requires applications for new schools to be submitted by January 1st. So this is basically a timeline waiver. And Iron Online has been a function of their alternative high school, Southwest Education Academy, for the past 5 years. And this year they are seeking to separate Iron Online. So this isn't a new school in the way that you would think about it, like a new building and new teachers and things like that. It's an existing program that's operated under their alternative high school, and they're seeking to separate the two and have Iron Online be designated as its own new school. So the waiver request is for a waiver of the January 1st deadline.
So AAG Beal,
And yes.
just one second. Deputy Superintendent Nui has her thinking face on. I have my confused face on because you said this was a waiver from R277, and I believe you said 484. And our recommended
Yes.
action is a waiver from R277-552-3.
Oh, okay. I might have messed that up. That would be my fault, I believe.
I don't know who's right. I just want to make sure that we're all looking at the same request. And Deputy Superintendent Nui?
If I may, Chair. So both of these rules, so 484 and 552, deal with the timelines for creation and changes to schools. 552, I'm not sure that they need a waiver under that one, but 484 has the specific timeline as a incorporated document. And so I do think the AAG bill is correct in what she said, and we can change the memo to reflect that.
Okay, so the recommended action would just be Utah Administrative Code R277-484. Okay, and if that changes, just let us know. But again, apologies, AAG Beal. I just wanted to make sure that we were all in sync. So please, if you weren't done,
No, I appreciate it. I apologize. I think that was my fault. I put that wrong in the memo. I gave that incorrectly. But I also just wanted to note that Superintendent, I believe it's Schofield is how it's pronounced, but is online if there are any questions.
No, isn't it Brad, isn't it Lance
Yes.
Hatch? Superintendent Hatch.
okay, Superintendent Hatch is on.
No, I'm sorry. Lance, I'm Steve Schofield. I am not the superintendent, but I'm actually in his office right now, pretending to be the superintendent. I'm the principal of alternative programs in Iron County School District. Lance is my superintendent, who's not here with us right now.
Thank you. Principal Schofield, you heard the summary. Is there anything you would like to add to that for clarification for the committee?
No, that was wonderful. I couldn't have said it better.
Maybe it's just sitting in that office.
I think so.
Does the committee have
No,
any? Oh, I'm sorry, Principal, go ahead.
No, just, we didn't anticipate it growing as large as it has, but we started this right around COVID, maybe right before. And we just feel the need to separate the two schools and let the alternative high school back to being its regular school and have online function as an online high school separate from that. So yeah, that's all we're trying to do. And I apologize, I wasn't aware of the timeline to turn in that application. Otherwise, I would have done it. So here we are.
And I do have one question, and then I'll turn it over to the committee. But my question is, I didn't see your local board. Did they consider and vote on this matter?
Yes,
And could you?
that was on. Go ahead.
It may have been, yeah. If you could just provide the committee with an overview of how that went. Was it a unanimous vote? Were there any concerns that were shared?
No concerns shared. It was a quick discussion. It was mentioned in their work meeting 2 weeks ago, I believe, and then last week in their regular board meeting, they voted on it. No issues. This was a long time coming, so everyone was kind of aware that we needed to do this. This is just a matter of officially making it happen. So.
Okay, I'll open it up to the committee. Does the committee have any questions? We have a question, Board Member Lear.
Yes, thank you for being with us today and giving us some of the background. You said, and the material said, this just needed to happen. We wanted to do this. Can you give me a little more substance about what drove this? And two things actually while you're speaking. A, what really was driving this? And then secondly, I'm just asking you to confirm what I think. When I first read this, I thought maybe they're chartering a school internally. Maybe this is going to be a charter school for Iron District. And then as I read more and as I've heard you today, there's no charter issue, which would have been under the other rule. It's just you're creating two separate entities for Iron District, as I'm understanding it. So just, can you talk about both of those things?
Yeah, so the issue is that you've got your alternative high school doing great, and you got your online high school doing great, but they're both using different ways of, for example, Power School is the SIS of choice down here, and we're trying to do mini quarters at our alternative high school. Well, that's problematic for the online school because they don't use mini quarters, and where they're under the same school, that just complicates things in Power School for us and complicates any data we're trying to look at. They're all connected, and they shouldn't be. But we were living in that world, and so it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll just do the best that we can this way. Another thing driving this is, as I said, I'm the principal of alternative education. Well, that includes Southwest Education Academy, our alternative high school. It also includes Launch High School, a competency-based school. And both of these are smaller schools, but we have other things, the adult high school. We have this online program that's grown. So it was complicating things for the administrator. So now we have some other administrators that are going to be helping with these schools and manage them efficiently. Accreditation was a problem because we didn't want to. We have to do three. I have to do 3 accreditations now. That seems excessive for one man. And now our district is pursuing a district-wide accreditation. So we just thought, well, now is a good time, since we're going to be accredited as a school district now. That wasn't really an issue. That was my fight in keeping them under the same roof was pertaining to accreditation. But I think really separating the two schools is it's going to be better for everyone that works in those programs. They're going to be able to focus just on the students and their needs and that online situation. And same with our alternative school. They'll be able to do just what they've been doing and providing the best services. And, it's not noted on my application there, obviously, but we were under, our alternative high school fell under a comprehensive school improvement plan. So the last 3 years, we've been, the alternative high school was being punished for an error that we just overlooked in our at our online school when we began 5 years ago with the graduation rate. It just complicated things for both programs, and now I think we're ready to say, hey, let's separate, and it'll be more positive for everyone involved.
One follow-up and then
That was a lot.
separate question. The follow-up is, do you have a number of do your alternative school students also use the online program?
They have, not at somebody that might be at the alternative high school, if they decided to go online, then yes, they're still enrolled at SEA because everyone's enrolled there, but they leave that on-campus setting and do online. And I imagine that will continue from time to time, but the difference now would be they would unenroll from the alternative high school and enroll in the online school now.
Okay.
Where before, it would have just been a combined effort.
Okay. I'm feeling a little guilty in asking probing questions because you just want a timeline. Come on, you're probably sitting there rolling your eyes saying, because we can't see you, saying, come on, lady, I just want a
Joey, turn
timeline
on.
variation here. I'm
There's
not,
no eye roll here.
I do like seeing you, thank you. And I wouldn't blame
Okay.
you for the eye roll. But I did note one other thing, and I'm sure you know it too, and I just have to ask because it struck me so, and that is that as I looked at your alternative school enrollment, you have a greatly disproportionate number of Latinos in your alternative school in terms of the total population, and that troubled me some. It doesn't really relate to the online versus alternative, but it did trouble me, and I wondered if you have any explanation that helps with that.
Yeah, it is troubling and has been noted. And we saw a little bit at the end of last year, but this year in particular, the numbers rolling in, it's been something that I'm watching, something that I've forwarded on to our superintendent and our director of secondary. It's really nothing that, to me, it doesn't say anything in particular about our school, because all of our enrollment comes from our big schools. So that the bigger picture is I think is a district question. Hey, what's happening here? Why is it looking this way? And so we are working on that with our at the district level.
And thank you. I again, this is not the kind of request that should trigger a in-depth discussion or of that concern, but I'm glad that you see it also and you're talking to the rest of the district about it. And if we still have a investigative part of the Department of Education that at the federal level, that's something that they might key on. So I'm hoping, and it sounds like you're paying attention to that, and thank you for that. And those are the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Lear. Board Member Hall.
I won't labor this. I think you kind of answered this with Board Member Lear, but before the split off, was it like a hybrid model where some kids could take classes online at the alternative school and and have school there? Was it set up that way, or was it not really set up that way? Were the two kind of integrated together?
So SEA is the alternative high school that's accredited.
Right.
It's on our main campus, been there since 1999. That was a great year. But around COVID, that's when we started this. I mean, we've always offered online services, but we really saw a push 5 years ago. And so we created this online program underneath the accreditation of SEA. I've got other programs under SEA that are nowhere near the size of what online has turned into. Online, though, because of the increase in population and because of we see that it's not going away, we may lose some enrollment, but the services, they're available, the people are there, they want the services.
Yeah.
It just happened to be created as a program under SEA's accreditation. So it's not like, I mean, yeah, they fell under the same school, but they weren't necessarily connected.
I think what I'm asking is, it'll still be an option though for kids to utilize that online as well while they're still in a brick and mortar school.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
In fact, that's one of the things that we are proud of. There's probably 1,500 courses that have been taken this year from students in our big schools and at our alternative high school even, but mostly the bigger schools that they're still enrolled at Cedar High School and Canyon View High, but they want to take an online language arts class.
That's great.
So we accommodate. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hall. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a quick comment, and then I'll be ready to make a motion. Principal Schofield, I appreciate you being here today. I appreciate what you guys are trying to accomplish, and I know there's lots of rules and laws and dates, and so I can definitely see how dates can sometimes be overlooked, and that's just how we all learn and move on. So I do recognize that different schools have different purposes and provide different service patterns to meet the needs of all students, and I appreciate that there are lots of options for our students so they can all be successful, so thank you for that. So with that, I would like to make a motion that the committee approve Iron County School District's request for a waiver from Utah Admin Code R277-552-3 and forward to the board for approval.
It's my understanding it's 484.
Oh, let me restate that. Okay. I make a motion that the committee approve Iron County School District's request for a waiver from Utah Admin Code R277-484 and forward to the board for approval.
The motion before the committee is that the committee approve Iron County School District's request for a waiver from Utah Administrative Code R277-484 and forward to the board for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Principal Schofield, that passed unanimously.
Great. Can I do a side eye for Carol? Thank you.
Thank you for showing what grace under pressure is. Oh, well, okay, thank you. He's a busy man. With the committee's permission, just because we have Dr. Height here, if this is okay, I would like to move to agenda item 2.7, and that is R277-331, stipends for future educators, an amendment. Not seeing any opposition to that. Dr. Height, if you'd like to give us an overview.
Yes, good morning, committee. My name is Malia Height. I'm the Executive Coordinator of Educator Licensing. And today we have Board Rule R277-331, stipends for future educators. That has some proposed amendments due to the recent passing of HB 204. Which amends the program in state code. And so an overview of the changes in this rule are that a participant in the program has to sign an affidavit stating that they intend to seek employment as a teacher in Utah. There are now allowances for the student teacher to be employed during the student teaching period for the LEA, doing some student teaching or working after school as a coach or in a music program, for example. We're adding some provisions that student teacher is no longer eligible for any future stipends under the program, so they only get one. And then finally, educator participants outside of the state of Utah are now allowed to be student teachers in Utah and receive the stipend. So if they're doing an online program, or we have several students that come from BYU Idaho and student teach in Box Elder or Logan. And so this would provide that provision. There's a reporting provision for our Utah program so that we can provide an estimate in October to the LFA so that they can fund the program. There is one amendment that we are seeking today to add a provision to not hold any LEA responsible for any student teacher who doesn't finish their student teaching successfully, that they would not be held financially responsible. And with that, Chair, that is the proposed amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to the actual motions that I'm ready to make, I wanted to see if the committee had any questions about the rule changes that have been proposed in general. Board Member Lear.
You know, I wrestle a little bit with allowing students from out of state to get the benefit from state money. And I know that's a little stingy, but it does trouble me. The rationale for this is encouraging student teachers, I'm probably thinking, right? Is there more
Chair,
to
if
it?
I may.
Please,
If,
Dr.
if
Hayes.
you may, if you
So
will.
we have several, like hundreds of student teachers who complete their student teaching in Utah and then teach in Utah as teachers, full-time teachers. And so the intent of the change in code was to allow these student teachers to benefit from the program and entice them to be teachers in Utah so that we could continue to improve and decrease our teacher shortage. And that was why the provision of the same reasons that the heartburn that you have is similar to those that some of our legislators had, which is why the affidavit is now required.
And then one more
Alicia,
question. I'm sort of similarly concerned that if they don't finish their student teaching, there's no attempt to get the money back. And this is kind of real money. Remind me the amount. I remember thinking it was pretty significant. Is that
Yeah.
okay, Chair?
Please.
Yeah, so the stipend is $6,000.
Yeah.
In the history of student teaching, we have very, very few student teachers who drop out of student teaching and never come back. I think in my experience, it's a handful. Typically, if a student does not complete their student teaching successfully, they come back the next semester and try again and then are successful.
Oh, good.
And so with that provision that they are not eligible for double dipping multiple times, then they get the stipend once, and if they do it that semester, awesome, and if they have to do it the next semester, they still receive the benefit of the program.
But they don't get it.
They don't get it
can't be a
twice.
part-time job.
Right, right.
Okay. That makes me feel much better. Thank you.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to speak to this for a moment because I do know that I've had districts actually reach out and request that specific change to legislators, that we had a lot of individuals going to our high schools there in Utah, and they may go to BYU Idaho or a college just close by, and they do want to come back to Utah, and they weren't able to benefit from this opportunity in student teaching, and so it's a request that they changed. And I love that it also becomes a recruiting method, because oftentimes when teachers do their student teaching, they often stay in that same school, if not that same district, and definitely in the same state. So I do appreciate this change, and it's something I'm happy to support.
Vice Chair Hart.
Yes, so when I was in Kenyon School District, we have a large program that's cooperative with Utah State University, or Iowa State University. And my school benefited enormously from that program. And those teachers, I'm trying to think of even one that returned to Iowa. It's an established program, like it's an actual thing. It's a perk that Iowa State offers their students, and those teachers are. I tried to see if I could get some data on how many stay, but I haven't received a text back. But people want to come. Students, young people want to come to Utah, and they get here and they stay, and they are some fantastic teachers. I know that's just anecdotal, but it's another example of a program that we're using to get high-quality teachers, well-trained, into our schools and get them to stay. It's valuable.
When explained as an incentive, I just, yeah, again, I think it's a distinct person. It's not a big Democrat thing.
It's your Utah coming out.
It's your Utah. It looks like there's no other questions on the current form of the rule. Speaking with staff and reviewing the rule with them, they did bring to my attention 2 changes that they would like to incorporate. Those are now on the board. If we turn to line 46, I'd like to make a motion, and that motion would be that we strike the word semester and instead insert student teaching experience. And then I would ask Dr. Haidt if she just has the reason why for that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the request is due to, we have several institutions of higher education who do not run on a traditional semester schedule. And so we want to be able to not have to be bound by that schedule as we disperse these stipends to our student teachers.
And the second part of that motion would be that after, on line 48, subsection 6, we would add the superintendent may not penalize an LEA if a student teacher does not complete the student teaching experience. And Dr. Haidt, if you would explain the reasons why we want to add that language.
Yeah, so similar to what Board Member Lear was asking just a few moments ago, it's that if we have a student teacher who doesn't complete a student teaching experience, that the LEA isn't going to be stuck in the middle trying to get money back from a student teacher or have to repay the state board, that this would just allow us to let the student teacher keep the stipend, knowing that they are most likely going to try again next term and be successful then.
Dr. Haidt, I do have one question. It says the superintendent may not. Would the
Yeah.
LEA be permitted to do that or not?
Oh, that is an interesting question. There is nothing in board rule that allows for that to happen, but it is also not specifically prohibited.
Board Member Lear?
It's not LEA money, so I
Yeah.
would find it sort of inappropriate for the LEA to go after that money.
That's true.
I hope that they don't, and I hope this is just sort of something that would prevent this. Is just forward thinking and not something that happens very often.
So defer to the wisdom of the committee. Do we want to add superintendent and LEA or just superintendent? We're just good with, okay.
Adding LEA, if I may, Chair, would not fit there because an LEA would not penalize itself
Oh,
for that.
Thank you, Ben. That's something you should really, that should be something you tell me in private, not, right? But thank you for that. That was very kind of you. So the motion before the committee is that on line 46, we strike semester and insert student teaching experience. Insert after line 48, paragraph 6, the superintendent may not penalize an LEA if a student teacher does not complete the student teaching experience. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, now that that's incorporated, the motion itself, that the committee approve R277-331, stipends for future educators, draft 1 as amended, on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Any comments? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Height. Then, going back to the natural flow of our agenda, we'll pick up with item 2.4, Board Policy 2005, Complaints Against Individual Board Members Amendment. And again, as this is my initiative, I am going to ask Vice Chair Bollinger to lead this part of the committee agenda.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so there is a copy of a draft that has been updated, and I believe that everybody has a physical copy. It's also in our board docs, but given that this is Chair Carey's original motion, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Vice Chair Bollinger. Again, I want to start with an apology to the committee. Several members had reached out earlier before today or yesterday, but just given all the activity that was generated around yesterday's agenda, I did not have time to review and ask Director Rasmussen to incorporate those. And then today, I received additional emails asking for particular changes in the document. Given that this is board member initiated and no real deadline for us to comply by, I asked Director Rasmussen, thinking that he wouldn't be able to do it this morning, but to my surprise, he got it done. So one, I want to thank Director Rasmussen for pulling off what I thought was not possible, and just want to stress to the committee, if the committee feels that given the number of changes and the weight of those changes, that we should have additional time to review this, I am not opposed to that. I'll defer to the committee. I would just add, I do know that our next committee meeting will be several additional agenda items. We've had 2 light agendas these past 2 months. We make up for that in May. So again, I will defer to the wisdom of the committee, but just with that caveat that next month we already have a heavy lift. So we may want to move on this now if the committee feels it's had enough time. Thank you, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Okay, let's open it up to the committee. Member Lear.
I have a couple of comments and then a couple of proposed amendments, and maybe one of them is non-substantive. Once I saw this, I felt like that we want to strike a balance, having experienced a number of these situations now, a couple personally. I want to strike a balance, and I think it's appropriate to strike a balance between a process that's fair primarily for the person accused, because usually the government entity takes care of itself. But it should be a balanced process, I think. And I think this does a pretty good job, especially as it was, especially in the second draft. But that was one of the big concerns. I don't want the board to turn into a heavy-duty administrative body against its own members. I think that's a waste of our time, and I think it's not good for morale, and I could go on and on. So that was my reasoning for this. I also think that some of the issues we've seen with individual board members are anomalies. That having done this for many, many decades, I have rarely seen this be as much of a problem as it's been in the last 2 or 3 years, and especially one notable situation. So I also don't want to create a really prescriptive rule for something that never happens or very rarely happens. So with all of that stuff in mind, I've been looking at this, and I'll make my first suggestion, and I don't even know if this needs to be a motion, but one of the things I think we need to be consistent about is using the same terms for the same things. And so one of those is, how do we refer to the board member who's complained against? And one place it says subject board member, another place it says respondent board member. And I think we should choose to stay, I would choose respondent board member. A little more legalistic, I apologize for that, but I think it's more clear. The other place that we are using various terms is we refer to the assistant attorneys general as AAGs. I think we can say assistant attorney general that represents the board rather than on line 25 where it says agency legal counsel. And first, we're not an agency, and secondly, I think referring to those individuals as AAGs is more consistent. So I would hope that those can just be made as non-substantive changes so the terms are consistent. Are you okay with that, Ben?
Yeah,
Is
and
that
let me,
okay
let
with-
me refer to Chair Carey. Your thoughts on that? Is that a friendly or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank
So that-
you.
That was my first concern, and you can just do that as you go through the document, I think. The rule writing people can. My second proposed amendment, and I did this quickly this morning because I hadn't seen this language, is beginning on line 61, where there's discussion of a packet inclusive of all materials, this is 58 actually, to be used during executive session by, this sort of struck me as too prescriptive because I think that staff always facilitates what the board wants to do. And I don't want to be, again, hyper concerned about this issue when I feel like it is a rarity. So my proposed amendment, and this is, again, done quickly, so I will, it would be leaving lines 58 through 60, deleting line 61, and renumbering accordingly, deleting 61, leaving 62, 64, deleting number 4, deleting number 5, I'm sorry, let me try again. And I'll try to be consistent with deleting as opposed to leaving. So deleting line 61 and line 61, deleting lines 72 and 73, and I think I got all of those. Oh, deleting lines 64 and 65. I think those are just overly prescriptive for what staff needs to do when the staff knows how to do its job to prepare the committee. And it simplifies that, not making it look burdensome for either the respondent board member or the staff that would help. So that would be a proposed amendment.
And Member Laird, does what is written on the board clarify what you're hoping to accomplish?
Let me see. I didn't try to read that.
So it
Line
says,
61, 64, 65, and
they have 72 and 73.
72 and 73.
That does reflect.
Yes, that does reflect that. Thank you.
Okay. Motion is that the committee strike lines 61, 64 through 65 and 72 through 73. Is there discussion to that motion? Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I look at that and I appreciate and would agree to striking the line 61 and 64 and 65. But to speak to the motion itself, the experiences I've had, I just want to make sure there is a consistency as we go through this process. And I have not seen that level of consistency. I think removing lines 61, 64, and 65, leaving the others, gets us to a good spot. My concern with 72 and 73 is once these materials are assembled, USBE has the benefit of using staff to assemble this packet to be used in executive session. The board member who's the subject of the investigation would have to do this on their own. And in light of that, just looking for that parity, that's the reason why I've inserted and would like to keep line 72 through 73.
And can I, before Molly's very urgent, I can see, but, can I just speak to that? I would be okay with that, as in terms of pushing this along. Let's make it grammatical and say the board member may request staff assemble and distribute the packet on the respondent's behalf. The respondent board members, if you want to keep it consistent. Then I'm okay with leaving those two.
Let's go back to Chair Carey and then to Member Hart.
And I appreciate that from Board Member Lear, and maybe, Board Member Lear is the grammar expert here, but do we need to put respondent board member at the beginning, or just leave it board member?
On the beginning, that is a good point. I think it was not clear to me as I read this exactly which board member. I think that would be better, and then then you can simplify what you do at the end of the sentence. You don't have to repeat respondent board member again. If it's clear enough.
As I hear it, it would read respondent board member may request staff assemble and distribute the packet
period,
in
I would
the packet.
say. Period, if that's okay, Ben. Do you get that?
Okay, so
Thank you, Vice
would you-
Chair.
Would you like to amend your motion to reflect that?
Sure. And add respondent board member before board member on line 72.
Okay. Does that
To
reflect your
assemble
change?
and distribute the packet. Yes. Yeah, that's my amendment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Hart, did you have a comment?
Why do we even have number 6 if line 58 says that staff shall provide?
Say that again, Molly.
Why do we have lines 72 and 73 if line 58 says that staff shall provide?
Chair
That
Carey?
was kind of that was my point initially. But if Member Carey feels strongly that he wants to
And-
signal support for the respondent board member, then
I just wondered, where did
I'll
it
live with it.
Where did it ever insinuate that the board member themselves were going to do any of this in the first place?
Chair Carey, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just, again, based on the experiences that I've had, I thought more clarity would be beneficial to the process. And certainly, I think we've had a very, in the time I've been here, leadership that was willing to do what's outlined here with, from my perspective, very little or no extra burden to the respondent. I'm not sure if future leaderships would
Oh, I see.
be that way, and so I'm just trying to put in some safeguards and protections into the process.
I see.
So, and for clarity, I could go either way. I like having that extra line there because it says shall provide, which is a little bit weaker than what we have currently on line 72 and 73. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Member Hart, did you have any other additional comments?
I had an additional question. That was just something that occurred to me, but do you mind if I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it even possible that line 74 occur? I thought that once the matter was closed on an investigation of any sort, everything becomes public. Is that not true?
So it kind of depends on what's found. So if allegations are not substantiated, there is a lot of leeway to treat those as private.
Good. For
If the
in
allegations are,
perpetuity?
what's that?
In
Yes.
forever?
Yes.
Okay.
If the allegations are substantiated,
Okay.
that's another matter. So that's why
I
I
see.
recommended we put that distinction.
I see. Thank you for clarification.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the motion that's on the board. Any other comments to this motion?
But I do want to come back to that last
All right.
part.
So if there's no other comments on this motion, let's go ahead and vote on this motion that the committee strikes lines 61, 64 to 65 and amend line 72 to read respondent board member may request staff assemble and distribute the packet. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Member Lear, did you have another
I
motion?
just had one more wording suggestion. And it struck me last night, but I couldn't come up with an alternative, and Molly provided it, or Joe did, I forget. Chair and member respectively. That line 74 would read, staff shall classify records of allegations, of non-substantiated allegations as private. Or unsubstantiated allegations as private.
Okay. I'm gonna put that in, you want that as an official motion, correct?
Yes, just,
So are you substituting
yes,
unsubstantiated for uncredible?
yes, unsubstantiated.
And let me go back to Chair Carey. Chair Carey, would you like that to be a motion, or would you consider that a friendly?
Given the discussion, I would consider it friendly.
Okay, just reword that and put it, this is just a wording issue. And that's all I had, thank you.
And I'm going to have one question, and I don't know if this goes to Ben. When we talk about on that line 75 and 76, where it says staff shall classify records of allegations substantiated by the board as public, so it becomes public record, is that include all testimony, orders, findings, and records? Is that everything, or should that be like a summary statement of the findings?
So I know that that was what Chair Carey originally asked for, and there are specific statutes that, for example, that if there's a complaint against a legislator or against certain officials in the executive branch, there are specific statutes that have those options for those groups, but the legislature has not done that for most people. So that would have to be a specific exception created by the legislature under grandma. We could look at certain pieces of evidence individually to see if other exceptions apply, but as a general rule, anything that deals with a substantiated allegation of misconduct by a public official is going to be private, or is going to be public, excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Member Lear?
To that point, and this just occurred to me also, and I thought that was an excellent idea and thought, because there will be undoubtedly there could be some personal allegations and maybe some individuals mentioned that would be unnecessary to make public and some things like that. So when you making the analogy to our UPAC cases, if there's a grammar request for a UPAC conclusion once it's finished, do you literally provide everything, or do you provide a summary statement?
Well, I don't provide a summary statement. I usually, in a UPAC case, will provide a board report, a consent to discipline, the board action. Most of the evidence in UPAC cases are records that belong to the LEAs. They don't belong to us, and so I don't provide those. But documents that we've generated in-house on UPAC cases, if there's a reprimand or higher, we generally provide those.
But we do have them, so they could be considered our records, and you keep them.
Well, grandma has provisions that if somebody asks us for a record that we have that was created by another LEA, that we would tell them that belongs to the other LEA, and if they want it, they have to go to the LEA.
I don't know, I guess we'd have to sit and read through
looks-
grandma for
Looks like Debbie would like to
half
make
a day.
a comment.
But I prefer the summary statement to every document. But let's.
If that's okay. So Debbie Davis, Chief Audit Executive for the board. So I concur with Ben. There would have to be a specific carve out in grandma for the record to be private, and that's what was included in House Bill 169, which was Representative's bill, that records These ethics records would be private except for a summary report, but it is the Legislative Ethics Commission, the Independent Executive Agencies Ethics Commission, and Political Subdivisions Ethics Commissions. All of the records remain private except for a summary report. So this would be a different level and completely up to the board how you want to do the policy. And because it's not in statute, again, you'd have to have that carve out. But it is those three ethics commissions, so political subdivisions, executive agencies, and legislative, those are all private except for a summary report. And it's very summary.
And yours not any one of those.
Right.
Okay, thank you, CA Davis. Any other comments? Go ahead.
No, I just, if I could speak to
Yes.
to the motion.
Sure.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yeah, I just think this is an important step forward. Again, trying to find the right balance regarding accountability and due process. I appreciate the patience and the willingness of this committee and also the involvement of our stakeholders and other board members not on this committee to engage in this process to try to get us to the best place possible. Thank you.
Okay. Member Lear.
Oh, Debbie had something
Oh,
else. Did you wanna go
All right, let's go back to CA Davis.
I'm sorry, I hadn't seen the language, and so, but I do have just a couple of questions to make sure I understand internal audit's role. And one wording, the wording is on line 26, where it says review current investigative findings. I believe that's referring to the preliminary analysis, and that is not an investigation. So I have a little bit of unease calling it investigative. So I don't know if you just want to call it what it is, the preliminary analysis on line 26, unless there's something else that
You
I'm
have an
missing
old
that it's
copy.
referring
You
to.
have an old copy.
Do I?
Is that right?
So let me
Oh, I don't
clarify.
know.
It looks like you're talking about line 26 where it says review current investigative findings.
Oh,
You would
Yes.
recommend that it said review preliminary.
Review the preliminary analysis.
Review the
I'm not
preliminary
aware that there's any
analysis.
other review that has happened to that point when board leadership receives it. Is that the case? I mean, maybe I'm missing it. I'm sorry, I just barely.
No,
am
thank
leading.
you. Thank you for bringing that up. And, I'm going to go ahead and go back to Chair Carey to respond to that.
Again, I want to thank CA Davis for that. I would accept that as a friendly.
Is that-
Yes, now my only question would be on line 27 then. It says, or further investigate, which kind of implies an investigation was done. I'm fine with that wording, but I would defer to CA Davis. Is it okay to leave it that way, or would you just take out the word further and put or investigate?
Probably just investigate is most accurate.
And I would accept that as a friendly as well.
And then just my two questions. So on line 15 and 16, where it says internal audit shall consult with the AAGs, 100% happy to do that. What is the hoped for outcome in doing that? Or what is that intended to do? Just so I know going into that.
Okay, Chair Carey. Oh, let me go back to Member Lear.
That was the other change I suggested. My thinking was, you're not attorneys. And this could become, it has some risk for the board member's reputation. So that's considerable risk for the board member's reputation. So I want to make sure that legally the procedures are sound as the process begins.
As it begins or at the,
Well, it
when they
says,
review,
I
to
think
review
this
the
was about
preliminary analysis?
it says you complete a preliminary analysis of the allegation and related supporting information, consideration of the law. Internal shall, as it begins its preliminary analysis of a complaint. So it kind of pushes you back. Maybe it wasn't in a perfect place, but it as I'm reading this again in light of all the other discussion, that those last two lines, 15 and 16, do refer back to as you begin the analysis.
So it's before we do it, not after.
That's where I just think this carries a heavier weight, an elected official, and one of our own, as opposed to another inquiry or review that you do.
Sure, and I'll just clarify, my current hotline specialist is a lawyer. He is not providing legal services to the board, but we do have that legal mindset. Might not always, so
I'd
this is
prefer the
fair, this is good,
AGs.
so that's fine, yes.
In the
that's
rarity,
no
in
problem.
the rarity of the occasion, I think it'd be wise to know for the board member, respondent board member, to know that you Sorry for just keep addressing AAD, but I hope that's okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Amanda.
I just want to be super clear so that we have the right process. And that's my other question down as it starts on about line 56 when you say staff. Which staff is that? Internal, I just want to make sure, if this is internal audit, that I know that. I'm assuming that it is not internal audit because we do not generally prepare materials.
No, it's not.
It's not us. Okay. Oh, great. Okay, that's all.
I
had.
didn't
Thank you.
Any
I
other
mean-
questions, CA
No,
Davis?
no, thank you.
I didn't intend that anyway. So that was what I was thinking, although the placement in the policy is a little odd. That was, I intended that you confer initially because of the nature of the investigation, the fact that it's about a board member,
And it's not an investigation.
a review.
Vice Chair Bollinger, can I just interject?
Yes, please.
Something CA Davis said made me think that where I've listed staff there, when I first put that, looking at Chair Carey's amendments, I was trying to figure out what to put there. Perhaps we could do without objection if I were to change staff to board secretary,
Board assistant, isn't she called our assistant?
whatever Sybil's title is. Would that be without objection?
Any objections to that as a friendly?
That's fine.
Great.
I agree.
Yeah.
I have one more thought
All
about,
right.
because I think this issue of what information would be available to the public could be very sensitive, and I want to be, maybe, and maybe we can't make it perfect, but what would it look like if we just eliminated line 75 and let you address those individual grammar requests? Consistent with what you do with other appropriate requests.
Director Esposito, so you, okay, and Chair Carey?
I would accept that as a friendly.
I would just strike,
75 and 76?
I would just strike 75. Yes, 75 and 76, not 74.
Okay. Any other discussion? I do have one question that was brought up by another board member. Just a question, and maybe this goes to you, Director Rasmussen, and this may be in provisions for legislators and not for this body, but I had someone recommend maybe a portion of this that a complaint can't be filed during the 60 days preceding a primary or general election. Is that something that is allowed by law, or is that something just specifically for legislatures?
So that came from specific statutes that apply to the legislature and to a committee that's set up under the executive branch. So I think, and what I specifically told Chair Carey on that is, as far as how we're taking complaints, that's outlined in a rule right now, and so that wouldn't be for this board policy. I think if we wanted to address specifically how we're taking complaints against board members, we should make that as an exception in R277-123 where we outline the complaint process.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, and with that, any further discussion? All right, so let's go back to, did we have an original motion, or do we need Chair Carey to make an original motion? Okay, so if we can go back to our motion. Then the motion would be that the committee approve Board Policy 2005, Complaints Against Individual Board Members, Draft 2, as amended, and forward to the board for approval. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously, and I will send the microphone back to Chair Carey.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bollinger. Item 2.5, 277-609, Standards for LEA Discipline Plans and Emergency Safety Interventions, incorporated document. It was requested, just again, given everything that, several factors, the size of the document, the amendments that were made, as well as the lead up to the board meeting and the time that we had to spend on other items, that this matter be carried for an additional month. I did speak with the maker of the amendments insofar as I was aware of who they were, as well as Leah Voorhees on this matter. Leah did not have any objection if we carried it another month. The maker of several of the proposed changes did not have an objection. And I just wanted to share that, but it's this committee's decision with the understanding that we do have a heavy agenda in May. I agree with the recommendation that we move this, carry this forward, but I did want this committee to know that in May we will have a full agenda. Thank you. Thank you myself. But
Thank you. And I do see some wisdom in talking to, I guess her new title is Deputy Superintendent Voorhees, right? I have to get used to that. But I do see some wisdom in making sure that those whose name in the committee that has been working on this gets a chance to review all of those changes. I mean, if my name was on something, I want to make sure that I knew what was happening before I was like, oh, I didn't know we were making changes, even though my name was on that, right? And so I do see some wisdom in that. However, I also see wisdom in making sure that we don't delay the process or make this any longer. So unless there's a reason why this body here would want it to come back to us before going to the full board, I do think that if we push this forward, but then directing staff to have the committee review it and then go to the full board in June, that might be the best of both worlds, because I don't know that they'll have time to do it by the May board meeting. So just wanted to put that out and get your thoughts if you felt like it needed to come back to our board or our committee, or if we could do that.
I'd rather, you just looked at me like, is that okay?
yeah, we'll just do
Oh,
we'll do
that's
the
right.
good, the bad, and the ugly
I'm
thing with
having
the
a
ayes.
hard
but-
time
Go ahead.
transferring leadership.
Board Member Lear.
I'd like to have it come back to the committee, because what I'd also like to ask the staff to do, and again, not trying to make too much work for them, but I found it really hard, not being an expert in this area. I tried to skim the whole document. I would like them, the staff members, to direct us to the concerning, or the prominent changes, let me say it that way, so that they could, and I don't have to wonder if every non-sub change is important. Does that, who's in charge? I don't want to ask too much, is what I'm saying. But if that's possible, I'd like to have that committee discussion.
Yeah, and I'd also be in favor of returning to committee, primarily because of the size of the document and the number of proposed changes. If we are intended to act as a first line on these issues, I think it would facilitate a much quicker general board meeting. But again, having said that, depending on the feedback I receive from staff between now and our next committee meeting, I'll consult with the committee, but it may require us to meet twice. But again, we're not making that decision, but I'll see what staff has to say about how long they feel that portion of the meeting would take. Thank you. Vice Chair Hart.
Yeah, it's not a hill I'm going to die on. It's not something that, I get it. But we have beat this thing to death. That poor LRBI, if it was a living thing, it would no longer be living. I use it in my, I use it weekly. I pull that thing out. I've got it annotated with sticky notes all over it. I've switched to using the draft. Fine, we can wait on it, but it needs to get out to the field. And it needs to get out to the field sooner rather than later. I get it, I'm fine, we can wait. I just wanted that to be on record that I don't think I've seen another document that we have perseverated over than this LRBI. So sure, it can come back, but man, it's cooked.
Just
Member
in the
Lear.
spirit of discussion, I would agree with you if we had only draft one and we could just pass draft one. I trust these practitioners. I trust our, I absolutely trust Dr. Voorhees. but there are significant changes other drafts. So I don't want to ignore those board members' concerns, but I also cannot agree to them without hearing from the professional staff. So that's the dilemma I think I'm in. And I agree with you, it's been beat up. And I say it's precisely because you do use it. If it were the driver's ed manual, no offense, and that's not, they do use that one, I know that they do. If it were some other more obscure manual, I'd say never mind. But I think this is why it's important to use terminology that the practitioners are comfortable with and that's accurate and supported by the field.
Thank you. I think Coordinator Lewis, is she that I see? I don't know if you heard the whole discussion, but I represented that I heard from you and Deputy Superintendent Voorhees that there was no objection if we carried this for another cycle. Just wanted to make sure that was accurate. And then one thing I don't know if you were in the room for was that the committee would benefit from your input once you've looked at the changes and understand what's being asked. How long that would take, because it may necessitate a second law and licensing meeting. But that decision doesn't have to be made today. But in regards to the postponement for 30 days, does that have any unsustainable adverse impact to staff, to the LEAs in the field? If you could just address that.
Thank you, Chrisanne Lewis, Student Services Coordinator. I would agree with everything that's been said in this meeting. I think that we would like to make sure that the LRBI that's approved, it has been reviewed by everyone on the board. Everyone has a chance to look at it, look at the changes, make sure that it is what you would like it to be. And I think waiting another month to have that review and make sure that the final product is usable and of good quality is a good path forward.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on your opening, which was, I agree with everything that's been said. You would make a great board member because everything was different, but you agreed with it. That is the...
Absolutely.
So thank you, Coordinator Lewis.
Absolutely.
So do we have a motion to reflect that, to reflect the discussion that this will be carried for an additional month and then be brought back to committee? And while that's being right there, so the motion before the committee is a substitute motion, and that is that the committee postpone item 2.5 until the May committee meeting. Any discussion as to that? Vice Chair Bollinger?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering if we need to add anything to that reflects our discussion about sending it back to, I don't know if we're calling it the LRBI committee for final review? Or the working group. I'm just wondering if, I think it would be beneficial to add that to the motion because that's really our purpose in postponing. If you're okay with that, or I can make an amended motion.
That's
Okay.
accepted as a friendly. Thank you.
Thank
It
you.
does improve the motion. Vice Chair, does that reflect your understanding of what you would want? Okay, so the motion before the committee is that the committee postpone item 2.5 until the May committee meeting and direct staff to have LRBI working group review draft 2. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. That passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. The next item is item 2.6, R277-497, School Accountability System. This is an amendment and continuation, and I believe Director Rasmussen, you're queuing us up on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a rule that is up for its 5-year review. Just two basic changes the staff is recommending here. First, that we add an oversight category on line 14. In this case, staff recommends a category 3 here. And then the other change would just be to update where the Utah Accountability Technical Manual is recorded on the USBE website. The old language on line 65 through 67 isn't consistent with how the website is currently set up. So we've just kind of moved that reference abbreviated it and put it on line 57. So happy to answer any questions you have about this. We have our great assessment staff here who can help you with that, and then happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from committee? Seeing none, we're ready for a motion. And, I thought board member, I thought you were going to make, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I move that the committee continue and approve R277 dash, I thought it was 487.
No,
497, School Accountability System Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading.
So the motion before the committee is that the committee continue and approve R277-497, School Accountability System Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. All those in favor?
Just one correction here. I thought I was looking at the right draft in my, as we reviewed this, and it does
Should
say
just be-
487.
487 is later on the agenda.
Okay, maybe I'm reviewing the wrong one. I'm still okay about 497.
okay.
Thank you.
So just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is regarding, I'll reread the motion, that the committee continue and approve R277-497, School Accountability System Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on, we did discuss and pass R277-331, which was item 2.7. So we will go to item 2.8, R277-487. This is public school data confidentiality and disclosure. This is an amendment, and
Elise, are Katie and Nicole online? Or did they? Oh, you just walked in front of me, sorry.
I was like, so, Director Rasmussen, are you queuing this up, or are we going right to Director?
I will just briefly. So staff is recommending some updates to the monitoring requirements. I think Nicole Sanchez has some slides that she wants to go through with the committee just briefly to explain the proposal here.
Thank you. Specialist Sanchez?
Thanks, I'm learning how to use the buttons. I'm Nicole Sanchez, and I am a student data privacy specialist. And today we are talking about making some revisions to R277-487, which talks about compliance for LEAs. We've got just a really brief slide deck here. And I wanted to talk about our privacy compliance review as it stands right now. Currently, we review 5 documents, and that's the requirement of board rule. And the documents are, 2 of them are from federal law, annual FERPA notice and directory information notice. The student data collection notice, data governance plan, and metadata dictionary are from Utah's state law. Our timeline is that LEAs turn in this information over a survey that becomes available in October. They turn it in November, and then they can resubmit until February. And this is based on the documents themselves are based on board rule. What we're looking for within those documents comes from either state or federal law. And then districts or charters are held in compliance or seen as being in compliant when they have all of those documents up to date and comprehensive. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this question might help everybody understand why we're talking about making a change to the rule. We've seen this process work. A majority of our LEAs are compliant. Last year we had over 80% compliance. But the current review is very focused on documentations. All the requirements are the same for LEAs across the state. It's the same every year. and compliance is determined by just completeness, which doesn't leave very much room for improvement, especially if LEAs are looking to expand their privacy program. So our proposed review would focus more on best practice rather than documentation, and it would allow for a little bit more individualization of LEAs, and it would also support implementation of privacy practices as required by the Government Data Privacy Act. So overall, it would just allow a little bit more room for LEAs to make improvements. And then if you could go to that next slide. So this is the proposal that we'd be looking at, or the way that our compliance review would change. Instead of asking for documentation, we would ask LEAs to fill out a self-assessment at the beginning of, in fall of the school year. We would get that survey back and help them to determine an area of focus. And then we would provide some support to them, some coaching, some professional development, and help them get a plan for completion in place. And then by May, they would tell us the results of that plan, whether they had fulfilled their goal or not. I think that might be the last slide. Yep, the last slide is just my contact information if you have any questions.
Specialist Sanchez, when I reviewed this, the first thing that struck me was that the new system, to me, would appear to take significantly more time than our existing system. If that's correct, I'm concerned about the burden to your team. Could you share with the committee, will this take more time? How much more time? And how are you going to navigate or balance that in light of the fact that we run a very lean budget?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So currently, I'm just completing the privacy compliance review from this last year. And I didn't take really careful track of how many hours I spent, but I think I spent around 150 hours getting this done, just because you have to look through every document and check everything over, communicate with LEAs, provide coaching, get that information back. And so it takes a lot of time as it is right now. But I have questioned whether that is time that's really well spent, because it's all about checking boxes as opposed to providing really in-depth coaching with LEAs. My estimation is that this probably won't take any more time than our current review, but that the time would be better spent because it would be focused on a goal that the LEA wants to pursue rather than just making sure that a document is taken care of. And I also think that having a document in place doesn't always ensure that compliance is actually happening in the procedures of the school. So having that time to work with them would support that.
Thank you very much. Any other, Vice Chair Hart?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm my other hat. I'm an LEA, and today is due my rough draft of what's called the Digital Teaching and Learning Plan, and it is massive. Although it has been abbreviated somewhat, it is still massive, and it was due the same day as the PCBL plan, which is also massive, and we also have to revise the school safety, and I could go on. In particular, I kind of wish the superintendent, maybe she's listening. Why can't the agency look at the DTL plan, which is obviously different? It's digital teaching and learning, but there's so much crossover into data privacy and digital, like there's some crossover here. Why can't these plans be combined or adjacent rather than on top of? I think this is very important work. I take this work seriously. I'm not minimizing it. I just think that I guess it's the best way I can think to say it is that we have plan on top of plan on top of plan rather than things working together. I mean, in my digital teaching and learning application, I'm checking boxes about these things. And I just think there needs to be more coordination rather than layering it. I'm just not ready to say, okay, let's do another plan. I'm really reticent about that. I'd like to see a little bit more coordination with the digital teaching and learning. I don't know what that means, and I don't know if maybe you've already thought of that, or I'm sure you've already thought of it. Can you speak to that at all? I didn't phrase it in the form of a question.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Katie Chalice, Director of Privacy. The issue you're describing is well known to me, and I think probably to Nicole. In our work with the DTL team, we work pretty closely with digital teaching and learning. And I've seen the digital teaching and learning application revamped, I think, twice in my time, and cut back twice in my time at the board. We have discussed removing the data privacy and security elements of that application for the exact reason you're talking about, the duplication. However, as I recall, we were unable to do so because some of the pieces that have to be in the application are either in statute or in the big. Yeah.
Well,
No, the one that governs the DTL
it's the
program.
DTL law.
Yeah. So I think we're really, I don't think there's there would be no pushback from our team on consolidating those. I do think it might be interesting to note that the HB 508 bill that passed about school data amendments is one component of that study is to explore the reporting requirements that exist for LEAs. So that might be an interesting place to investigate that. There is also a little bit of complexity because often the person, speaking as someone who used to be an ed tech coach in a school district, I was involved in the digital teaching and learning grant application, whereas some of my colleagues would have been the ones completing the privacy compliance. So it's not always the same people.
That's the problem. That is a problem. Oh, it's not.
Oh, so you don't like my answer? Is that
No, I think you underscored I would like to see this as someone needs to come up with a map of all these things, and it needs to be one, we're just losing opportunities, and we're Freddie Flintstoning it, where, he's moving his feet, but the car's not going anywhere. And then finally the car takes off, you just envision it going random places. It's just not intentional. And I want to do this. I very much want to do this. It's just killing people. I mean, and it means that they do it haphazardly rather than more systemically. My problem right now is that this is important, and I'm inclined to move this forward. However, it's problematic in the larger scope. So I'm really struggling with how to support this, but put the brakes on the unintended consequence that will happen, which is the amount of time is limited, and so the work that will be done in this plan will be superficial. And I don't want the work to be superficial on the part of an LEA. So I guess having said that, I'm inclined to move this forward because it is it's a strong process. But I guess just to let the world and everybody know that I want, at some point, I'm gonna maybe see if some board members will support the idea of looking at the bigger picture and creating some consistency across what we're the totality of what we're asking LEAs to plan for and be mindful. We're in the space where we're putting things on top of each other, which means things get buried, rather than putting them adjacent and making connections. I don't know.
So, to the extent you could detect a question in Vice Chair Hart's manifesto on privacy,
There is no question, I'll make a motion. How about
no,
A suggestion.
of a board member Lear.
I have two, and I do have two minor amendments, smallish amendments, and then I have a suggestion. Because I was on that data privacy committee while then Senator Anderegg was doing everything everyone asked him to do in a bill that created, that as I recall, says that LEA shall have a the board shall make rules requiring LEAs to have policies. So I think this is one of the examples where the board gets the blame for the for duplication, but it really comes from a legislative situation as to the Data Privacy Act and the other one, the digital DTL, that I'm not as familiar with. So I think what I would suggest, so I'll start with that first, is someone, and Molly, this is more work than you want to do, but somebody puts those two laws together, and we request from the legislature to have consistency, so there's one plan. So that there's not these two plans that are very similar, but we're required to do both of them by the board. And then we pass that on to LEA. So that's my first suggestion. And then secondly, my two minor changes, if that's, and I don't know if that needs to be a motion or if that's the first suggestion, if that's just a longer problem, wicked problem.
This might remedy that in some way. That was on our list of interim study items.
Oh, good.
So I think we're moving forward on a remedy for that, I believe.
Okay, and I just lost my board doc, so I'll try to do this from memory. Thank you, ma'am. Oh, look at Amanda. Lines, at the very end of the rule on line, line 272, I think we can do away with that first phrase. And then another one on line 180, and we can do these together. I don't think they'll be too controversial. Maybe, I hope this one's not. Line 180 where it says, a licensee may petition the board. I think we really want the licensee to petition the superintendent. We don't want to listen to every licensee's concerns about their data in Cactus, but I think it's appropriate for the superintendent, her staff, to make that review. So I would, my proposed amendments would be to delete the first phrase on line 272 and then to change board to superintendent on line 180. Joe, are you thinking?
I'm sorry.
You're absolutely not thinking.
Yeah, I am so sorry. I was reading your proposed change. So we have a motion currently before the committee, and that is that a motion from Board Member Lear that the committee change board to superintendent on line 180 and strike the first phrase and strike.
The first phrase, yes, on line on 272.
Yeah.
And that would be right. Yes.
And strike beginning with the 2018-19 school year on line 272. Board Member Lear, does that reflect
That
your?
does, thank you.
So the motion before the committee is that the committee change board to superintendent on line 180 and strike beginning in the 2018-19 school year on line 272. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, that motion carries unanimously. Any other discussion or motions? If not, we're ready for a motion on the underlying action. Thank you. Oh, Rod? Whoa.
Oh, go ahead,
Whoa.
Rod.
Well, wow.
Go for it.
Mike?
All right, I'd like to make the motion that the committee approve R277-487, Public School Data Confidentiality and Disclosure Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you, Member Hall. The motion before the committee is that the committee approve R277-487 Public School Data Confidentiality and Disclosure Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That will conclude our law and licensing meeting for today.